Hi, everyone. It's Jeremiah Desmarais here again, and it is my great honor to host a good friend and industry influencer, Don Graves. For the last 14 years, Don himself has helped over 4,000 individuals leverage what I'm going to call a little known strategy in order to be able to understand and implement something that I got to still say this is one of the best kept secrets in the industry. Don, you're also one of the instructors for the American College. You've written two amazing books, and you're endorsed by some of our other fellow speakers, Ed Slott, Tom Hagna. The list goes on and on and on. And you've been kind of the best kept secret of a lot of advisors. So I'm really honored to have you on our summit today, because I believe that this is going to be a big year for what you specialize in. So Don, let's jump into it, brother. Looking back on 2020, what were some of the key distinctions that you discovered working with the kind of people you do and the kind of services that you offer?
Yeah, thank you, JD. 21 years I've been doing this, and in that
21,
time,
okay. Thank you for
and
that.
in that time on the consumer-facing side, I've had about 16,000 consumer-facing conversations and 3,000 clients. On the advisor side, in my course at the college, there are about 23,000 advisors working through that. So I've talked with tens of thousands of advisors. Here's what I discovered in 2020, that pandemics don't come along very often, but when they do, it can be a real shock, not only to the societal system, medical system, but to the retirement income planning system. And now we're forced to look at things differently than we were forced to look at, or we had to look at before. Traditionally, advisors who are doing retirement income planning are looking at three assets for their clients: their income, their investments, and their insurances. And I'm including annuities in there. And from that, they have to develop a plan that makes sure the client has enough money to last their entire lifetime, where that money maintains its purchasing power. What 2020 did with the pandemic really exposed the idea, are those three things enough: income, investments, and insurances? Why are we not looking at what the Census Bureau said is the single largest concentration of wealth for the retiring boomer today, which is their housing wealth? 68% of the average retiring baby boomers' total wealth is in their housing wealth. If we're going to be fiduciary, responsible, suitable, appropriate, and doing what's in the best interest of our client, can we really ignore the housing asset when developing a retirement income plan? That's what 2020, that's what the pandemic began to expose. So advisors, forward-thinking, progressive advisors, really came alive to that idea.
That's fascinating. I'm actually taking notes because I did not know 68% of their wealth being there. And all these advisors have been looking over it, right? Because, the standard go-to demographic of an advisor is, I want somebody with $500,000 of assets under management and, over the age of 55, right? Or 55, 65, $500,000 of assets. Now, when you add the house in there, it just opens up so many more people to, your potential wheelhouse, right?
It's absolutely phenomenal. I'm sitting here outside of Philadelphia, home of Temple University. A famous book written by its founder, Russell Conwell, was called Acres of Diamonds. It was a parable of a farmer, a poor farmer who heard about diamonds. And he sold his farm. He went out searching for diamonds. He couldn't find any. He died poor, broke, and penniless. And a person bought his farm years later and noticed in a creek a shiny object that and ended up being one of the largest diamond finds in all of the Far East. But those diamonds were in his backyard. What advisors don't realize is they got acres of diamonds right in their backyard. There's a fellow said, I wrote an article called this. So a fellow said, Don, how do I want to find more clients and new clients? I said, well, I'm going to help you find clients right in your own backyard where you can have significant planning conversations. He said, how would you do that? I said, well, how many clients do you have? Would you guess? He was an older fellow that are age 62 or older, own a home. He said 300. And I said, ask him this question: email, letter, postcard, phone call. Say, hey, Bob and Sally, I'm curious. If we could use your home to increase your cash flow in retirement, would you want to see how it works? That was it. And I asked him, I said, if you ask that question, of the 300, if you could use your home to increase your cash flow in retirement, would you want to see how it works? How many of those 300 homeowners would say yes, or tell me more? He said all 300. I said, no, not the Gates, the Bezos, the Buffett family, but 297 would want to see it. And I said, so that's in your own backyard. So you've got a twofold challenge. Number one, you don't have time to speak to 300 people. Number two, you may not know how housing wealth can increase their cash flow in retirement. So you've got a knowledge gap there. But getting a conversation and to do that, help one advisor generate $47,000 in fees and commissions over a 10-year period of time, all without ever using the direct proceeds of a reverse mortgage to do so. We helped an annuity provider triple their commissionable sales, doing what was in the best interest of the client without ever using the direct proceeds of a reverse mortgage to do it. And I said, now how much money would you have to leave on the table? How many conversations will you not have before you understand that this big asset, and I have to watch how I say that. I said it wrong in a church basement one time. I said, Miss Jones, that's a big asset you got. And the pastor and the deacons got pretty upset with me. But I said, how many times? I said, we don't want to overlook that. Now, advisors, they're not looking at the housing asset like I do, because I swam in this pool, Jeremiah, for 21 years. And so my job is to help them to look like Moses looked at the burning bush. I just want them to turn aside for a little bit and say, that's different. It's been a little time over there. And when that happens, what you do, JD, what I do is help folks to have more significant planning conversations that's in the best interest of the client, but also adds to their bottom line.
I love the fact that thanks for giving us that actual question, because that's a practical thing that advisors can take away. Don, I got to ask though, why have there been so many misconceptions in this industry about reverse mortgages? Where is that stigma, and what are advisors completely missing about this opportunity?
Sure. 21 years ago when I came in, AARP had a VHS and a commercial, and the commercial started out like this, and I quote, "If you consider yourself house rich but cash poor, a reverse mortgage may be for you." Now, how many people in a room with the advisors who may watch this would say their clients would raise their hands willingly and say, "That's me, house rich and cash poor," even if it were true? And so there are a couple things. Now, what most people don't know, Jeremiah, is a reverse mortgage is in over 14 European countries: China, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, UK, over four. So it's not new. That's 1900. Started here in the United States, 1961, became part of the Federal Housing Administration, 1988. So in 33 years, as under the auspices of the federal government, there are lots of tweaks and edits and changes that could be made with anything. And so where'd the bad reputation come from? Well, part of it is those commercials. Some say just the term reverse mortgage. It's not called that in other countries. It's called equity release products or equity release strategies. But in times past, there were bad actors. There were some lenders and unscrupulous folk. We haven't seen that in many, many years, but that got a bad reputation. Then there were people who did the wrong thing with the reverse mortgage. One of the things that we hear often is, "Oh, don't do that reverse mortgage. You could lose your house." And I once said to a person, "I don't know anybody's lost their house because of a reverse mortgage." "Oh, no, it was in the paper the other day." So they sent me the article. It took me 24 paragraphs, Jeremiah, 24 paragraphs to find out why this couple lost their house. Now, I don't know where you're located. I think you're somewhere in the Northeast, but here in Greater Philadelphia, if you don't pay your property taxes, what happens next has nothing to do with the reverse mortgage. And so 24 paragraphs in, we discovered that this family hadn't paid their property taxes. So I said to folks, but once that story gets out, you went over to your cousin Tracy's for the holiday, and Uncle Junebug was living in her basement. You said, "Uncle Junebug, what are you doing in Tracy's basement?" He said, "Oh, I got that reverse mortgage and I lost my house." And everybody at the party says, "That's terrible." And you know what? Uncle Junebug told the truth, JD. He did get a reverse mortgage and he did lose his house, but he didn't tell the whole story. He hadn't paid his taxes in 3 years. And so that's a part of the story that's missing. But once that story gets out at the family reunion, the barbecue, and out into the general public, there are misconceptions that arise. Here's what's happening. So advisors, typically we don't have those hurdles. Their hurdles are different. Don, I heard they're expensive. I heard my clients would never need them. I said, "Do you have a client between $1 million and $45 million in assets?" I said, I can tell you plenty of stories. There's a fellow out in California. He had a capital gains bill, $7.1 million. They called me, said, Don, is there a reverse mortgage that will provide that type of money? I said, no, it will provide $4.1 million. Negotiate with IRS, and we'll do a reverse mortgage. It's a jumbo on his $10 million home. You can pay them the 4.1 million, and then the rest the following year because he was rehabbing a hotel. Now, what's the alternative? The alternative was to take $7.1 million out of qualified plans in Northern California, which would equate to probably $15 million to net $7 million to do that. Well, that directly affects the advisor. Another fellow, retired CEO of a large multinational pharmaceutical company in Jersey. He had a $4.5 million home. He had a $2.1 million in mortgages, and they were trying to do an estate plan. The estate plan, they needed $15,000 a month for life insurance premiums for 10 years. Now, he had money they could pull from, but he said, can't we do a reverse mortgage? And they called me, and I said, yes, we can do a reverse mortgage, eliminate your existing mortgage payment, to which he was paying $21,000 a month in debt servicing. To eliminate that freed up $21,000 a month. So the financing for the premiums for the estate plan were covered. And so what advisors are missing, and maybe I don't want to go to my I have a dream speech here, but what advisors are missing, JD, is that how in the world, I used to, you remember Fat Albert, you may not have watched TV.
Oh yeah, I remember Fat Al. I love Fat Al.
I said, now Fat Albert's 70 years old. And imagine Fat Albert comes into the doctor's office and his knees hurt, his back is in pain, his cholesterol is high, his blood pressure, and the doctor looks at Fat Albert with all of these things and says, let me give you a pill for that. But he never says anything to Albert about the fork in his hand. that may be
the hamburger in his hand, right? He always had a burger.
Right. We never said, so you overlook the obvious. 87% of retirees own a home. And we've got a threefold dilemma. We've got a global pandemic going on right now at the time of this recording, but we also have a global retirement income crisis. And here are the symptoms. People are living longer, they haven't saved enough, and they're highly indebted coming into retirement. So if you're an emergency room physician, you should know the signs and symptoms and treatment options if someone comes in with coronavirus. If you're a financial advisor and someone has the symptoms of retirement income sickness, you should know the treatment options. And if their biggest asset, their largest concentration of wealth is there, and you say, I don't know what to do with that, I don't know how that applies, you could be guilty. This may come off strong, but that could be a type of financial malpractice. And that's strong. I know, and I've been saying it for 21 years, but I do think it's negligible. And I know, listen, advisors don't have time to explore all of this. That's why I'm here. That's why you outsource some of this and you learn. And you mentioned a few folk, Tom Hegna, who's one of your big speakers coming up. Tom has seven steps to an optimized retirement. And step number 7 is use home equity wisely. Tom asked me to rewrite that chapter in his book. Ed Slott wrote the foreword. Ed asked me to write that second book so he could feature it on one of his PBS offerings. And he bought it for all of his advisors. And his metaphor was, I said, Ed, why is this important to you? He said that if you're playing a game of cards and you're not using all the cards, you're cheating yourself and you're cheating your clients. He said reverse mortgages are a way to use a greater part of the deck to make sure we're successful. So that's why what you're doing is important. My job is real simple. I help advisors to see what they haven't seen. That reverse mortgages can help your clients increase their cash flow, reduce their risk, preserve assets, improve liquidity, or even add new dollars back into retirement income. Those 5 things. And it's not a secret anymore. It's the cat's out of the bag. When you've got Dr. Robert C. Merton, who won the Nobel Prize for Economics at MIT, say this, that reverse mortgages could be the solution for the global retirement income crisis. When you have folks from MIT, folks from Cambridge and Texas Tech and American College and Stanford and Boston College, all saying the same thing. We cannot ignore housing wealth and create sustainable retirement income plans. That means we want to pay attention to that. All right, that was my I Have a Dream talk there, JB. Sorry about that.
Well, I'm a believer. Can I get an amen up in this place?
You have an amen right here, brother.
I love it. So, with all of this coming to fruition, and you've done a lot of the yeoman's work for the whole industry, Don. I mean, you've been out there, waving the banner when nobody would listen. And then all of a sudden, some people started to listen, and then the big influencers. And then, you're now here on the virtual stage sharing it. Why do you believe that this is next for 2021? Why is this the year where you think reverse mortgages are finally going to come out into the limelight?
Because of the things I said. Next is advisors are now asked, because of the pandemic, certain things have been thrust right in the forefront. There were 5 million people March of 2020 that applied for mortgage forbearance. 5 million people. A good majority of them were in or at retirement. There were a large number of people that were counting on working longer, but they had to retire at 62 because their job went out of business, or the business they had that they thought they were going to sell is no longer worth what they thought. So the pandemic put things front and center. So what I said at the beginning of this talk was that what's next? Advisors, you've looked at their income, Social Security, pension, maybe employment. You've looked at their investments. And if that's in a 401k or an IRA, we are fairly confident that the tax rates may go up. We've looked at their insurances, including annuities. Is that enough? And what's happening now, what the next is that, Don, how do I look at their housing wealth in order to not separate it, but incorporate it, integrate it with income, investments, and insurances? How do I do that in order that we can create a more sustainable plan? That is front and center right now. Just look at, I didn't turn the phone off in another room, and that could be my mama calling. But it's front and center, JD. It's front and center with this. So what's next? For advisors who want to be comprehensive, suitable, appropriate, fiduciarily responsible, doing what's in the best interest of their clients, they cannot avoid understanding how housing wealth works. I believe every advisor worth their salt, I believe this with all my heart, every advisor worth their salt must have a cursory knowledge of how reverse mortgages work in order to, at minimum, factor it out of their client's retirement income equation. That's what's next, in my opinion.
I want to thank you so much, Don, for lending your wisdom and your insights. And it's I'm waving the banner with you, because I've known people personally who have a terrible retirement and could have known about this, could have used this, or still could use this, but it's just, their advisor either was not aware or didn't have the right information.
Sure.
And part of our vision here at Advisorist, my family's vision, which I've had in private conversations with you, is to be a force for good in the world. And, we can do that in many ways. And Advisorists here, our vision to be a force for good goes right in line with helping everyday homeowners to use the wealth that's in their home so they can really live a happy retirement where they have peace of mind. They don't have to worry instead of continuing to grind it out. So who knows the reverberations of this conversation, where that might end up. I'm really hoping that you as a watcher are going to take action and investigate it. And if you really don't know where to start, my personal recommendation is to start with Don. Don, can you tell us, if an advisor is leaning in now and has believed and heard the gospel and wants to move forward, what should somebody do? Like, where should they go to get in touch with you? Where can the education start?
Sure. You can go to housingwealth.net, www.housingwealth.net. There's some resource and article and blog posts, books, but mainly there's a contact us button. You can reach me there. I want to encourage you. I do some training and some other things that is educational in nature. I want to help advisors to understand how to help their clients even more than what you're already doing, but to use this big asset that's right in your own backyard to have more significant planning conversation. You don't need to do Instagram and all these other things. You may do it, but there's money in your own backyard, and your clients are going to be thrilled if you could just do one thing. My gosh, think of your clients that have an existing mortgage on their property. They got it at 50, now they're 70. If you ask that client, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I see that you're already making a mortgage payment in retirement. I have a question. If you had a choice, would you rather that payment be mandatory or voluntary? What would they say? 100% of the time, they're going to say voluntary. Then you say to them, would you like to see how it works? And that's what the reverse mortgage does for just that. And that's a big set of clients. It can take a mandatory payment and make it voluntary and absolutely shift everything around. If your advisors heard that and asked that one question and then know where to go, you can find me at housingwealth.net. And JD, I thank you for wanting to make the world a better place, not just wanting to, but doing it. You did it in Chicago and the things I know about you. So God bless you, and heaven smile upon you and your wife and your family for doing what you do.
Thank you, brother. That means a lot. Thank you a lot. So thank you so much, Don. Guys, go check out housingwealth.net, connect with Don. And if you happen to have a copy of our book, The $1 Million Email Swipe File, I just got a whole new email swipe file from you, Don.
Okay.
So let's just give this away to everybody. Is take your list, send that's a new one-line email. Would you like your mortgage payment in retirement to be was it mandatory or voluntary? Was that what it was?
That's it.
Yeah, mandatory or voluntary. Just put that, write it in. And then when people say reply and just put obviously voluntary, say, great, would you like to know how that works? And then you're going to call Don and be like, Don, I got 10 people that I don't know how to help me out. And guess what? Don's your man. He's going to come in and he's going to work with you and make that happen.
Awesome. And,
awesome, brother. Thank you so much, guys. Everyone go to check out housingwealth.net, connect with Don, and we'll see you on the next session. Bye for now.